So my name is Milind Bhandarkar. I'm the chief scientist here at Pivotal Software. I was told that a lot of people do not know about Pivotal. Pivotal Software might be the largest startup that you might have heard of. When we came into existence last April as a spin-off from EMC and VMware, we had about 1,400 people. Now we have about 1,600 people. So it's, saying startup with 1,600 people on existence probably does not go very well, but that's what we are. All right. So today what I'm going to be talking about is my favorite pet project, Hadoop. And I've been working with Hadoop since Hadoop version 0.1. From 2005, in 2005, I was really lucky to join a team in Yahoo that was responsible for rebuilding their entire search infrastructure. So a group of 6 people started writing specifications, documents, a bit of prototyping, and in 2005 December, we realized that there exists this open source project inside of a search engine called Lucene that Doug Cutting and Mike Caffarella, only 2 of them, had developed. This was called Nutch. And inside of Nutch, there existed a couple of very interesting technologies, Nutch MapReduce and Nutch Distributed File System. So in December 2005, at Yahoo, we hired Doug Cutting, and we basically said, we are going to abandon everything that we have done so far in the last 6 months, and we are going to adopt this new technology, which is already open source. So we don't have to do anything. We don't have to deal with legal, anything like that, in order to open source our own IP, right? And that is what became Hadoop. Right. So since then, I have been working with Hadoop. For the first 2 years, I have done intensive development in Hadoop. Since then, I've been working with, earlier with Yahoo users of Hadoop, and then later after moving to Greenplum and now at Pivotal, I've been working with a lot of really smart engineers and really great customers who have been porting their applications or porting their big data analytics platforms onto Hadoop. Okay, so that's sort of my background. Actually, earlier when we were talking, I realized that one of the first or one of the most commonly used MapReduce jobs in Hadoop, which is estimating pi using Monte Carlo simulator, is actually written by me. That's like the most commonly used application to test whether the Hadoop cluster is up or not. That's sort of my doing there. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about is basically a few things, right? What I do nowadays is basically when I talk to customers, when I talk to a lot of people who are trying to develop using Hadoop, right? Basically recognize some of the gaps that exist in Hadoop, and we basically work on, okay, what can we do inside of Hadoop so that these gaps can be addressed. Okay, and most of the times, since Hadoop was designed to be so extensible and so flexible, it basically means extending Hadoop to do something rather than making changes to the core of Hadoop. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about initially is how to extend the MapReduce functionality itself, right? And then how to extend MapReduce, in particular the shuffle phase, if you have heard of it, to get maximum performance out of your hardware, right? The second part is, now that Hadoop and MapReduce have been established, people have been looking at what other functionality can I add to Hadoop to move it beyond MapReduce, right? You may have heard of a lot of SQL on Hadoop implementations, or real-time streaming inside of Hadoop, or other machine learning frameworks inside of Hadoop, right? So that is now possible because of the refactoring that recently took place, moving from Hadoop 1.0 to Hadoop 2.0, where a new component was introduced in Hadoop called Yarn. So now having Yarn allows us to move Hadoop to beyond MapReduce. And I will be talking about one such framework that we have developed and we will be open sourcing soon. Okay? And that's called Hamster. Okay. And if we have time, I will basically end with some of the recent developments we have been pursuing to extend the Hadoop distributed file system itself in order to make it more scalable, more performant, and more pluggable in general, right? And even if I have listed Q&A at the end, when you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible, or we can, offline it. All right. So let me start by extending MapReduce, a section of my talk, right? So before we go into that, let's just understand, get a brief overview of what MapReduce is. When a lot of people, either from a database background from SQL, for example, SQL, or from big data analytics using scripts, etc., Perl, Python, whatever, when they move on to do MapReduce, right, the first thing that they need to understand is that unlike SQL, MapReduce is much more flexible, right? And unlike some of the very unstructured kind of data manipulation languages like Perl, Python, C, you name your procedural language, MapReduce is a little bit more structured than that, right? So what MapReduce operates on is a concept of records. A record is basically just two parts. One is a key and the other is a value, okay? And the keys and values themselves are not of fixed types or anything like that. It's a very extensible type system, right? All that the keys have to do, both keys and values, is that they need to serialize themselves somehow into a stream of bytes. Most of your common data types, such as UTF-8 strings, or integers, or floats, or doubles, or whatever you have, they serialize really nicely into a stream of bytes, right? A double is an 8 bytes, float is a 4 bytes, etc. There is a fixed representation of that. You can convert that, you can send that over the network into another process's address space. You can deserialize there, and you can deserialize it into memory and operate it on it as that particular type, right? But even user-defined data types, such as, let's say, a point in space, which is X, Y, and Z, all of them doubles, you should be easily able to serialize it into a stream of bytes, and when it reaches from one address space onto another address space, you should be able to deserialize it and get it into an object form in memory as an X, Y, Z, right? That's the only restrictions that we have on the keys and values. The second restriction, which is only on the keys, is that the keys of the same types need to be comparable to each other, right? And the reason will become soon apparent in the logical phases, right? So these are the only restrictions that we have on the keys and values, which basically means that unlike, let's say, SQL, which has a fixed type system, that these are exactly the types that we can represent inside of a table in a database, we can actually extend MapReduce to do a lot more things with a lot of different data genres and data types, okay? And another thing to note is that even if we call this the MapReduce framework, where the focus is on map and reduce, in fact, a single MapReduce job or a single MapReduce application, if you want, actually consists of 5 different phases: input, map, shuffle, reduce, and output, okay? Some of these phases are actually optional. So you can have a MapReduce job running inside of the Hadoop framework, and you need not have reduce at all. You can just have a map-only job. You have 0 reduces, that means all the tasks are just doing map tasks, okay? So what input phase does, is it reads typically from a distributed file system, and that's where Hadoop distributed file system and Hadoop MapReduce work very closely together, is because they fit really well in terms of the parallelism that they expect, right? So input basically takes a stream of bytes and converts it into key value pairs, the records, right? And the key value pairs then get passed from the maps to shuffles to reduce, and then the output, and finally the output phase takes those key value pairs, serializes them into a stream of bytes, and writes them into a distributed file system, right? So in between all these phases, other than the input that is coming to this input phase and the output that is going out of this output phase, everything is a key value pair, okay? Everything is a record. All right, so what does a map do? Map basically operates on one key value pair at a time, right? One record at a time. It takes one key value pair, does some operations on it, and then produces maybe 0, 1, or many key value pairs, okay? That's the output. So if you are familiar with database or common database operations in SQL, right? The projections, the filtering, the transformations, which operate at a record at a time, all of those you push it into a map phase, okay? The shuffle phase is basically taking all the key value pairs logically that are produced by the map phase, right? And then takes those, groups all the values that occurred with a particular key along with that key, okay, and that's what this operation is doing, takes that whole list of key and a list of values, partitions them according to some function, some partitioner function, okay, and then within each partition, it does a secondary sort. It does a sort of values for that particular key, okay, and this is typically provided by Hadoop. You don't have to override it, but several implementations or several customizations of this shuffle phase are actually possible, and we'll be talking about that, okay. This might look like a big formula there, but this actually is pretty trivial once you understand a distributed group by operation in SQL or in any database system, massively parallel database system. Once we have done with this, with the reduce, which basically means that all the values that occurred with a particular key are grouped together, then this key and the list of values that occurred in any of the map outputs is given to a reducer, a reduce task or a reduce function. It operates on this key and the list of values, and it produces 0, 1 or more list of keys. Okay, and the type of the keys could be changing between maps to reduce and reduce to output, right? And that's what happens. So whenever you have an aggregate operation such as sum, average, median, all those operations that you do on a list of things, that can be done in the reduce phase. Okay, so that's sort of the overview of all the map, reduce, etc. that happens, right? How it is implemented? Well, you have an input. MapReduce itself is a parallel framework, which basically means that as you add multiple machines, the program is going to get faster and faster. At least that is the intent. Okay, so you may have a terabyte of input. You need to split that input into a list of input splits, and each of these splits actually gets operated on by a map function, right? And a map function, as I said earlier, applies to each key value pair or each record. So the responsibility of the input to input split and input split to the map function, the responsibility of that component is to actually take a small slice, and this slice is typically not really small. It's about 64 megabytes or 128 megabytes. You take 128 megabytes of data and you produce a list of key value pairs that are contained in that data. That's what happens here. Then the map function applies on each of those individual key value pairs and produces the map output, which is again a bunch of key value pairs, right? Now you take all the bunch of map outputs, and this is, by the way, a logical architecture. This is not exactly how it is physically implemented inside of Hadoop. But you take all the map output, right, coming from, let's say, M maps, and then you basically say, is this key going to go to this reducer or that reducer, right? You may have n number of reducers as well, or r number of reducers. So what you do logically is take all the key value pairs that are coming out of these map tasks or map functions, and you partition them into r partitions. So MIRJ in here basically means that the record was produced by mapper number I, and based on its key or value, it's actually going to go to reducer number R, reducer number J in this case, right? So now you are grouping together operation or the map output based on which reducer they are going to go to. And then that goes to a reducer. It basically takes the key and a list of values, operates or does some operations on top of that, and then produces certain output. So as you can see, the number of outputs that are going to be produced are individually produced by each reducer.